Hi, it's Miss Holly from the Talcott Free Library, and I'm reading Chapter 36, Al. Miss Scoggin, I started carefully, setting down a new hot cup of tea. Yes, dear. On that night, the night of the fire, I mean. Yes, go on. Well, the fire started after closing time. I remember that, I suppose. I have sometimes wondered. I hesitated again. My dear, you know I can't stand it when you stop talking before you have finished your own sentence. Fine. Why in the world was Mr. Brock still there? It should have been just the three of us, you, me, and the boy. Miss Scoggin turned pink. If you have never seen a pink ghost, I can tell you that it's an interesting sight. Already hovering, she now drifted higher. Was Mr. Brock still there? Miss Scoggin said, picking some imaginary lint off of her shoulder and suddenly trying to act bored. Of course he was still there, Miss Scoggin. Otherwise, he would not have been trapped and Yes, you are right, of course, Miss Scoggin interrupted. Now she was impatient. She landed gently in her chair. If you must know, he was waiting for me to finish up my work. We had plans that evening. Plans? Do you mean a date, Miss Scoggin? Miss Scoggin nodded once. We were going to the movies in Grantville that night, or we thought we were. We heard a soft sigh. Mr. Brock had been sitting on the small sofa all this time. Since he never acknowledged me, I had long before stopped worrying about what I said in front of him. But now he surprised us both by lowering his book into his lap and speaking loudly. The movies! Yes! We never did get to see that movie, did we? I do hope there'll be movies where we're going to next, Miss Scoggin. Have I mentioned? That is one of the things I am most looking forward to. Next, I said. Miss Scoggin tried to shush him. I am most looking forward to movies, he repeated. Quite soon, he added, picking up his book. It slipped through his fingers once, but he made another grab and managed to hold it up to his face. I put my hands on my hips. Miss Scoggin, where are we going? Before she had a chance to answer me, Mr. Brock, still holding his book, began to rise. First, he was only a foot or so above the parlor sofa, apparently still reading, but very soon he rose higher. Then his head was halfway through the ceiling. Miss Scoggin, he called. His book fell to the floor. Miss Scoggin! Mr. Brock! For some reason, Miss Scoggin seized my wrist. With her other hand, she reached up for Mr. Brock's ankle. He stopped going up, but did not come back down either. And we held together, like that, awkwardly. And then mice began to flood the room. Mice from a few different directions. I counted at least 6 of them. Ugh! Ugh! Miss Scoggin said, but she did not let go of either of us. She did, however, begin to rise up from the floor again, pulling me with her until I was stretched and on tippy toes. Mr. Brock was mostly through the ceiling now, Miss Scoggin hanging from his ankle, and me from her. I gripped her forearm, and she gripped mine. In order to anchor us, I grabbed the mantelpiece with my free hand. Mr. Brock's voice came faintly but clearly from the other side of the ceiling. Miss Scoggin, we must go if we are going, I believe. She looked at me. My dear, she said, can I do anything else for you? I wondered what on earth she was talking about. I've got the mantelpiece, I cried. Don't worry, whatever happens, I will not let go. She looked back at me. I felt her fingers slip a bit on my arm, but she squeezed harder and held me. You are on your way, my dear. Your small library is a success, and today you have met a brand new patron. Patron? I repeated. You know your place again, she said. At last. Our place is here, Miss Scoggin. Our perfect house. Her head was almost at the ceiling now, and mine was hanging sideways, one arm reaching up to her, one clinging to the thin marble edge of the mantelpiece. My dear, she said gently. I looked back at her and said nothing. If you let go, she said, I will let go. What do you mean? I yelled. I am the one holding us down. Exactly, she said. The 6, or now possibly 8, mice had gathered on the hearth just below us. I watched them and squeezed the mantelpiece and pretended not to understand her. I could not hear Mr. Brock anymore, but Miss Scoggins still held his ankle. Her grip on me slipped again, but we quickly caught each other by the fingers and squeezed. Anchored by the mantel, we were more or less stationary, an odd kite waving slightly. I looked up at the sole of Mr. Brock's shoe. If you can let go, I can let go, she repeated. Strangely, she sounded more patient than I had ever known her to be in life, or death. Mr. Brock was not coming back down. That much was obvious. I considered. She was asking a lot, but she was, after all, my supervisor. All right, I said finally. She nodded. I love you, my dear. I loved her too. I let go of the mantelpiece. In the same instant, she let go of me. I fell heavily to the rug, where several mice came to investigate me. Miss Scoggin hovered for a moment and then began to rise. I watched Mr. Brock's foot and then my beloved Miss Scoggin disappear through the ceiling, and I heard two final words summoned by Mr. Brock. What courage! I believe he was talking about me.